in situ, bedrock, or whether or not you're getting, secondary gravels. It's going to certainly affect your approach on how you reduce these things. So here's like a nice piece of Edwards here, and I'm just going to take my hammerstone here. And the hammerstone I got out of the Colorado River. It's just a piece of quartzite, and so this particular stone came from the Texas crushed stone quarry. So I've got it's been through the rock crusher, but it's really high quality, so I just have to work around some of the fractures that were created by the rock crusher. But depending on where you are, you may have to deal with freeze thaw, there we go, or any number of natural imperfections. So the Native Americans would work with these kinds of constraints as well. So the point being is that you get your core going, right? And that's just the nucleus of rock where all your usable pieces are coming off of. And so what's the goal here? So you can make pieces for use as expedient tools, or as blanks to make other, more formal kinds of tools. But as you can see, these things that are coming off, are just razor sharp. So they're good to use as is, just depending on whatever task that you need. Maybe you need something, you have something very specific in mind, and that you could. So what'll happen is you'll go through here, and this is pretty crappy, just because of all the flaws in it, but good stone. But they take what they wanted, they take the good blanks that came out all right, put those in a bag. Of course, they're going to take their hammerstones and leave the rest of this junk, and that's what you'll see when you get out to the quarry. You'll come up here and it's like, oh yeah, look at this core, yeah, and yeah, they ran into some flaws here, yeah, cortical debitage, hard hammer percussion, big bulbs of percussion on this is hit with the hard rock, so yeah, so that's the kind of thing. So this is pretty typical of the kind of flaking debris that you'd see at a prehistoric quarry, especially in the uplands, especially around here. And it's amazing, just look at just the few strikes I did here in hell. There's probably 100 flakes here. So you can imagine, if you get into an area, you're gonna end up with, just in some places just millions of flakes. It's just crazy. And so but so there's that. Okay, so then what I see a lot of times in terms of the pattern, in terms of like I don't know if Dr. Bousman's talked at all about technological organization or any of this kind of stuff. So the whole life cycle of the tool, from acquiring the stone to the production of the tools to the use and discard, through the whole life cycle. So at this point, we've got our blanks, and so what I've typically seen in the archaeological record, and it varies somewhat, from region to region, from site to site. They'll leave all that crap there. No one wants to carry around a bag of rocks like this. You're gonna test all this stuff in the field. You're gonna turn it into lightweight blanks that are viable. Put those in the bag and then back to the campsite. And then at that point, you'll modify these, into more formal, tools. Or you can use these again as is, or then use them and then turn them into formal tools. These things a lot of times have very complex use lives, and so we did the hard hammer stuff. I wasn't very pleased with that particular piece. I'm gonna knock on one more just to try to redeem myself. We'll see if this one cracks any better than that other one. Oh yeah, see that one, like I said, when they go through the rock crusher, it just tears them up, something awful. There we go.
Where do you get your material?
This I got from Texas Crushed Stone. I know the quality control guy who works at the quarry. But back in the old days...
Chris, tell them what you're doing when you're doing all those little...
Oh, okay, so hold on. So you see how I'm scrubbing the edge of this core? Now hold on. I'm gonna bring it around, let you guys check it out. So there, all right, so I just moved the edge of my core in, and check that out. You can see all those little tiny flakes. So here's the platform surface, right? That's the spot where I'm striking. And then so all these little tiny flakes along here where I'm bringing the margin in. Essentially, I'm taking that sharp margin off and I'm bringing it in because it'll just shatter, right? It's gonna strengthen the platform. So I'm preparing the platform and getting it ready for the next strike. So like you can see right here, you see this mass right here? Maybe this next strike I wanna hit, maybe if I pop it right there, I can go down this arris right here, you know, that ridge in between these two flake scars and remove that mass, and maybe I'll get a decent viable flake out of that, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So, so you know, a lot of these things you're not just wailing away. A lot of these removals are very targeted, you know, and so let's see what happens here. There we go. And that's the one I wanted. And so the goal is how many viable flakes, you know, can I get out of one core? And then at the end, maybe I can turn my core into something, you know, I mean, so anyway, but that's a nice little core. That's pretty typical prepared core, you know. Maybe I've had enough at this point, or I've got a boogie, you know, or maybe I want to take this. There's enough usable raw material. Yeah, maybe I'll just take this too. And we'll take these blanks that we want. That one's got too much curvature. I don't like that one. That's it. So that's the kind of deal. That's usually what we see. And then so, all right, so we got a couple of cores. All right, so usually now, so that's a lot of the hard hammer stuff, you know, which isn't always associated with the, you know, coring, but that's typically what you're gonna see. They've got the Herschen cones, they've got big bulbs of percussion, you know, and so now I'm gonna do some soft hammer work. So by soft hammer, and one thing that, you know, Britt will tell you, and what I can tell you is that I've gone through a lot of the collections at you know, here at Cass, over at Tarl, and I've looked at Native American knapping kits because, you know, I really want to try to mimic, you know, the toolkit as much as possible to, you know, just try to get an understanding of the constraints, you know, and maybe, you know, and make my replication more in line with, you know, with the constraints that they would have had, you know, using the same types of raw materials, using the same types of toolkits. And so what I do find is we do find these antler billets, you know, and but one thing I'm not seeing, and if you go to, who said that they did the Flint knapping, the knap-ins, or was it you? That you'll see like the big billets. Well, in Texas anyway, I've yet to see these. That doesn't mean they don't exist, but you know, I don't think there were elk. Maybe West Texas, maybe way back when, you know. But that's just through the collections I've been through. This is pretty much what you see. Now, I was just telling this story about Elton Pruitt telling me about Curtis Tunnel using a mesquite taproot. So here's where I'm experimenting with some hardwoods to see okay, well maybe there's no elk, but maybe I can get the same effect using a piece of wood. But in the archaeological record, I'd never seen this. Now, of course, in open sites, they're not going to preserve very well. The only place you're going to find something like this is going to be probably West Texas dry cave environment or something. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. All right, so I'll do a little soft.
Probably classified as a peg or something like that.
Yeah, and so and so how would you determine what it was? And you would look if you saw the diagnostic dinging on there. Oh, and just, you know, let's use it. Let's
do it.
Let's see what happens. Here, I'll take this core here. We'll see if I can knock a few pieces off. All right, it's got some mass to it. I don't like. There we go. Let's see if I can line up a good platform. See if I can get it. Now remember. So for those of you guys that are get the bug and want to try this at home, I'm telling you, just wear your safety glasses. You know, I mean, you might get a good bleeder, but there we go. Oh, that one, it shattered on me, and that's kind of an interesting platform here. It bit a lot off, but it's like a cross between. You know, it's a bit of a bending fracture and kind of a conical fracture there, you know. So let's see if what else. So it works, you know. I think I, you know, could maybe make it a little bit more manageable size, but it's got some good weight to it, and that's really kind of part of the deal. You know, to detach those flakes off your cores, you need some mass. Which brings me to this behemoth here. I think the good Dr. Lassen was over at my house one day, and we're geeking around. So back many years ago, I actually had the opportunity to work with the good Dr. Lentz here, and at a place out at a military base, Fort Hood, Texas. And so this is where this particular church's from. And let's see, so we're talking about the hard hammer thing. Let's see. So I should have a great big broken hammerstone. This is one. So before this thing was broken, so this is how I broke it. So you can say that's got some good mass to it. That's about 800 grams. That's big. Yeah. So what I did here is there's one flake here missing. I think I gave that one to Lassen. So let's see here. Okay, I can see let's see. So I've refit my core. So let me see if I can get the sequence right. And so we're gonna kind of do some refitting here too. So this is interesting. Okay, so I can see the sequence. So I came in here. I probably put my foot here. Pow! Popped it there. Got that flake off, and then I came in here, and so you can see right there where my platform is. Oh, actually, this is how it was oriented, just like that. So you can see it's got a really good angle right there, and so it's on the ground. I've got a good platform angle. Wham! Hit it like that. That flake comes off, and then came here. Right there, wham, hit it again, and I think that might have been the one that split that guy. He finally split on me, but I got like 3 monster flake planks out of this. And then so now, you know, what are you gonna do with something like this, you know? Well, they've got nice sharp edges, so, you know, you can certainly use them as is, but probably, you know, what I am gonna do with them, and we're gonna have some little knapping areas. This will be interesting, so we can kind of do an analysis here in a minute. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna start shaping this into a biface. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this ready for heat treating. And because the stone is actually, it's good stone, but it's kind of hard. And if I want to make like a thin biface out of it, you know, it's going to help to heat treat it. And you see that in the archaeological record. And by heat treating it, you know, I think it's, what is it actually fusing some of that stuff together, or is it pulling off the water? I've heard both.
It's melting.
Yeah. So basically, it's you're taking like a coarser material, it's melting the grains, and it's becoming a more fine grain material. And you can definitely tell it in the knapping, because when I knap the stuff after heat treating, I'm certainly getting cut a lot more. I mean, it's sharper when it's coming off, you know. And then and so you can see. Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever played in these Oklahoma takedowns.
Well, didn't Margie Dunn do that study on the Florence chert and like how it changed it? Different colors represent the different way it was heated, or the different temperature is heated.
Well,
with Florence chert, Margie Duncan.
Yeah, takedown in Florence.
So
Anyway,
you can see, so you can see now all the. So now I'm doing some like basically I'm shaping my biface. So here you have like just all the hard hammer flakes coming off. You know, some thinning, but right now I'm mostly just kind of getting the edge prepared. So now I may actually, so I could probably heat it like this, but you know what I'm gonna do is, let's see here.
What happens to the cortex? What happens to the cortex?
When I heat it, the cortex will change color. I really haven't had a lot of problems with heating cortex as well, and it'll come right off. You know, what I want it to be is I want to thin it out. I don't want it to be too thick when I'm heating it up. That way it'll heat through and through. And you know, like I wouldn't want to take a big, you know, honking piece like this and try to heat. It just wouldn't work as well. And if I get a lot of, and so what I would do, and what I've some of the experiments I did back in the day, and so you can definitely tell that this piece, which was off of another core, that's from the same source. I mean, those are like almost identical, you know. And then so let's see here. Let me get this ready. I'm gonna try to take a little of this cortex off though, just since Britt mentioned it. It really hadn't caused me any problems. But I'm not, you know, I'm not heat treating in an aboriginal way anyway.
So it might actually make it easier to remove the
But,
All right, so
you
now
only-
I'm grinding the sharp edge just to strengthen it a little bit.
What Chris didn't tell you was that he was actually taking flakes off the backside and moving the edge up through the cortex. And now he's ready to take the cortex.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, so I'm moving in on. Yeah, I'm actually gonna. I think I mentioned that I'm gonna take off some of the cortex. There we go. So let's see.
What he does with those flakes is he actually changes the angle.
There we go.
The cortex surface.
That's right. I'm changing my platform angle. So there we go. There, see? So now, you know, this is still largely unifacial. You know, so you can still see the original bubble percussion, the actual impact point on the platform, though it's been modified all around. It's almost completely erased at this point. You know, but that's the deal. On some of these blanks, you'll see some of those remnants, and so you can say, oh, that's how they got this. Yeah, they didn't make it off of like a whole nodule. They actually used a giant flake to do this far out, you know. And so you can read into a little bit, you know, of their technique into some of the remnant attributes that are on these things. And so that gets into, once you know, get into, you know, the analysis. All right, so I'm gonna hit this one more time. There we go. So that took off most of the bulb of percussion. And then I'm gonna do one more there. And honestly, I may leave it there, and then from this point, you know, and a lot of time, and especially if I'm gonna handle this at all, or if I'm gonna transport it, I'm gonna put it in a bag, you know, beforehand or whatever, I may dull these edges out a little bit, just, you know, so it doesn't cut me. You'd be amazed just, you know, maybe how I might reach across to grab something here, and one of these things would just like jump up and bite me. But yeah, but any one of these things, so within this debris that's right here, so we got two different activity areas here. We've got this core reduction, we've got an early stage biface being made off of a macro flake, right? So, so what, let's see, in here, I'm getting, now this is kind of interesting. You'll get these flakes that'll come off the ventral side, and that's just, you know, the ventral side, that's just the, when you have a dorsal and a ventral side. Have y'all gotten into any of that yet on your flakes? So when they're removing flakes off the ventral side, those first series will be completely flat, you know, and when you see these flakes, that you know that they're reducing flake blanks. It's all like, wow, the whole dorsal side is just one scar, you know. And so anyway,
When you first see that, because you're thinking that this is on the dorsal side of the flake, and you see that, you think, how could they do that? You know? Because it's curved in such a way that it just gives you kind of a, but they're rubbing off the ventral side.
and I remember seeing that one time in and so every once in a while, you'll get into, if in the right context, you'll find actually flint knapping features that are preserved in the archaeological record. And for, you know, someone like myself, I mean, that's really cool. I mean, you just love to see how, you know, the old timers were knapping. And so here, I'm actually using a piece of limestone. So there's plenty of limestone around.
That's harder.
Huh?
That's harder than what you're holding.
Yeah, it's coming out. I don't know where this is coming out of, but it's pretty tough stuff. But it is a limestone.
You got that out of the,
I got this out of the Pecos. Yeah. And so you can see here right now. I'm gonna, oh, just for fun. I don't want to dink around with this too much more, but I'll, you know, I never get mad about breaking stuff anymore. I've broken so much stuff. There we go. So this guy's pretty much ready to go.
And that would be for heat treating or
Yeah,
transport?
I'm gonna heat treat. I'll heat treat that one.
So what would you call that?
That is an early stage biface. It's got even though it's minimal modification. There's bifacial modification on both sides. You can tell that I've attacked that dorsal side. I've removed a lot of the cortex, but most of the ventral side remains. I'd still say this is.
So
I'd still call it early.
Guy Muto's terminology?
Huh?
In Guy Muto's terminology?
And Guy Muto, how does he have it broken down? It's been a while.
Blank, freeform.
Oh, this is definitely a blank. Yeah, so, and so blank
those would be
being
preforms?
that I can turn this into anything. Once you start getting something that has a very, like, distinctive, you can tell what it's gonna be based on the shape, and one of the best examples,
You have one right
which one?
there. That nice little trim like this. Yeah,
Which one?
right in front of you. Go down, right there to the other side, to the left.
Yeah, aren't those? Well, those
these
are,
here,
Yeah.
you know, and these are getting you know, fairly late. So
Yeah.
you know, these are preforming.
Right.
You know,
Right. That's what I was trying to get you.
and but I'm trying to see if, let's see here. Hold on, let me dig through. You know, I always bring everything except for, you know, the stuff that's relevant. And oh, so many bags of crap. Oh, anyway, I was trying to look for like a Folsom preform, you know, and you could really see where that was going.
Right.
So once again, but God, just look in
But
just a few minutes time how much debitage I've already generated.
But that triangular biface, you could turn that into here. So that preform. How many different projectile points could that become?
Yeah, quite a few, you know. Yeah, any
So
number.
you can't really tell what its finished form is going to be like. But if that was going to be a projectile point, which it may not have been, it might not be that, but if it was,
And then
there's like 10 different projectile point styles that you could make out of that.
and then another thing that
Can I sit on this like this? Is that doable to sit on that?
it should work.
How much crap has you put in here with you?
Oh yeah. And
You're gonna pop a
so
wheelie,
you can
though.
see,
You gotta sit
you
more
know,
back.
and so all this is pretty lightweight, and this kind of stuff is easily put in a bag. You can transport it with you, or you can stash it around the landscape, you know, and that's where you get into the caching behavior thing,
Right.
you know, and which Chris Lentz has written a lot about, and well, the good Dr. Kilby. I think you've written some stuff on caching.
No, I've never
No.
really dealt with caching stuff.
A colleague of mine, Kevin Miller, wrote his
Master's thesis on it.
master's thesis on biface caches. But so
We
basically,
found a cache of Alabates material down south of Lubbock, literally right on the edge of the escarpment. It was about to erode out, and there were about 5 or 6 pieces. Yeah, they've been all over me. There were about 5 or 6 pieces just sitting there, and you're a good 200 miles away from the quarry. And it's just finished stuff. It's almost finished. And you know, I think there was 1 or 2 finished points in the other large.
Is that the most southern cache?
Oh no! Oh, they're all over the place. No.
so now on this piece of limestone I was using, you know, it's not the most durable, but you can see all the use wear that's accumulating on that guy. So it's getting battering damage, and it's pretty diagnostic. So if I were to find, you know, a potato-shaped piece of limestone like that in an archaeological site with, you know, battering damage along the edge like that, I'm like, this really looks like a Flint knapping implement, you know. And then so and then when you do experimental work like this, you know, you can always say, you know, you can do all the hypothesis testing. You know, you use a bunch of them, and it's like, you know, they're either similar or they're not. And all right, so we did
One thing for me to say is that this is fit into the ground pegged category, into a hammerstone. But the one thing that's clear, and this has been, you've got all these striations and stuff all over it.
Yeah.
And then you have this battering and then flaking there. But one thing is clear is you're going to find virtually no debitage from this manufacture of that tool. So.
Yeah, like in here, there should be a flake. Here's one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Well,
right there.
Just prove me wrong.
No, I saw where I had a couple of
That's hilarious.
detachments, but it's unusual, and especially.
How much debitage do you see from ground peg stone?
Almost never, or if I found a piece of like quartzite, like this, like purple quartzite, you know, I would suspect no, it's not from stone tool. They're not trying to make a stone tool out of it. It came off during the production of
So
stone
are there
tools.
fracture patterns that you can recognize with something like that, or do you just look at like the ventral side?
And texture would tell you a lot
The
too,
flake
right?
that came off
Material.
of that?
Oh, of one of these. I
No,
mean,
the
the
flake
little
that
one-
came
the one
off
you
of
just had.
your hammerstone.
Where's the one that just came off that hammerstone?
Basically, I'm asking if you found something like that, how would you recognize that came off the hammerstone and not?
well, if it were this material, which is highly sought after, that one, I wouldn't know. Honestly,
You couldn't identify that from
no, I wouldn't. I would just think potentially it was natural. It just maybe if it really jumped out, but this one I just like that's freaking limestone, or maybe it was shatter from some of the cortex. I honestly I wouldn't have picked this.
But you might have like 1 or 2 flakes that look like that, but the hammerstone itself could easily have been transported away, so you wouldn't have anything to compare it to. And you're like, what's this one flake of kind of maturity limestone? What are you going to say about that?
So with the light soft hammers, this guy's still too hard to really thin it effectively with the light billet. It has to be a smaller piece like this. Now I think this one's actually heat treated. Look, you can see how the cortex has changed color. So
but the chart itself didn't really change color to it.
Just slightly. I think we should see, once I bust into it, maybe we'll see a texture change. So.
And that's what I was getting into.
Yeah,
I think Margie's study, she was able to know the different changes, tell a different color, right? With the Florence chart.
I haven't seen her study, so I don't know. But
certainly,
I've never seen any of that material that was any distance away from the quarry. I mean, like a kilometer away. That wasn't heat treated.
Right.
They heat treat all of it.
Well, and Don Wyckoff was saying how, I mean, he's done a lot of research on how tough that stuff is, right?
Yeah. But you see that stuff traded all over Oklahoma. And it's so distinctive morphologically because it has those radiolarians, those round fossils.
Yeah.
They're like worms. But every time when you flake it, you're usually cutting transverse. And so you see these little round fossils in them all over the place.
I have a question about this. I've never actually seen them myself archaeologically. Do they usually have those
Well, yes, you'll see scratch stones. You'll see.
But the limestone he has is unusual because it's a hard soft rock, or it's a soft hard rock.
Yeah, you see scratches like that, especially random ones. Now you get into the
these things. Yeah.
you get into like the incised stones.
Right.
Well, that's something else.
Yeah.
But
the incised stones. There's one case to be made. They're using those to make bone tools, and so.
And that would be like polishing it and sharpening the.
Yeah, keeping an edge on it. And the bone tools could have been used for all sorts of things, including indirect percussion flakers.
Aha.
There you go.
There we go. So right now I'm just removing mass. I'm trying to shape my biface. And I've got this little funky edge here, which was a hinge termination. Did you guys learn about those?
Okay.
So you can see this. Here's the ventral side of the flake. Here's the core that came off of. So something came in here and hinge terminated, and so it doesn't make for a very good platform. So I'll have to go in there and modify that, and so I can come in here and start removing some of this mass right here. So let's see if I can do that.
So how do you remove that hinge?
I'll
Knock
just
it off?
yeah, you can come in like from
the side.
come in from the top, and then from the side, and just kind of go back and kind of forth.
So he's flipping that back and forth and back and forth, and what he's doing, he's working that chipping, the chipping point that he's kind of attacking further and further down to move that whole termination, that hinge termination.
Now, did you use power tools to get your antlers to the desired shape?
Yeah, there's only so much time. In the
Yeah, I
day.
feel that.
Try cutting antlers with the hinge.
But I mean, even with the tip, did you sand like the bullet part? The billet or bullet?
The billet.
The billet.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I've got a bunch of antler that I need to
works really
prepare.
killer, and I'll be in the garage, and
You'll just rub it
like
on
I'll just like, and I'm wondering about
that's
like
cheap. I
any
can do
like
that.
flat limestone surface in a rock shelter somewhere
Yeah.
to see like little circles
Oh, yeah.
where they were like you can really quickly.
Okay.
I've got my eye
Dude,
open
I
for
even did
that.
that with this copper pressure plate. Just scrape this on
Oh yeah.
All right, so anyway, so here's some of our debitage. So that's the direct percussion soft hammer, and it's working pretty well on this heat treated piece. So now, now recently, and if let's see, you were at TAS, right? This year? No, in San Antonio.
Yeah, I was off and on.
Off and on. Well, so I did a paper this year on these implements. You know, Lassen's like, oh God, here he goes again. You know, but
it's really cool stuff.
But so from various sites in Texas, particularly like graves in particular, we're finding like these little antler segments, and what I believe they are, and they're punches. They're used for indirect percussion. They're also, there are terms that they use, drifts and what have you. And one of Harry Schaefer's friends, I'll have to get that email out. He went into great detail about the whole drift, and there's no clear, you know,
Terminology.
yeah, it's ambiguous. Now I'm using the term punch because I also like the term vertical punch versus horizontal punch. And a vertical punch being, and the only reason I'm getting my feet because I like to use my feet when I'm punching.
Kicking.
Is when you hold your punch. So once I get this set up, and I have my platform here, and so I'll hold my punch. So I'm gonna put, rather than striking it directly, I'm gonna move this. I'm gonna move the energy through an intermediary object and onto the platform. You know, and so that's the whole essence of indirect percussion. You know, instead of direct. And so you can see here the orientation of my punch is not quite vertical, but you know, it's certainly much greater than, you know, horizontal too. But there's another way that you can do this where they place them here and pop it down in the same way. And from that approach, I would call that a horizontal punch.
And that's how they think that they were doing Folsom points?
You know, you mean in terms of the fluting? You know, they had that whole conference thing at Tarl years back, like
Yeah,
a
it
lo-
was a
a-
2002 publication.
along back in the 90s, I think, is when they had their little shindig. Anyway, man, there were so many ways to skin that cat.
Okay.
There was some dude that
There was a
just
guy who did it by
they were just
pressure.
come in and just, ah, he just like
Exactly.
power through
That was Eugene Gribba, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
And then Bob Patton was like, no, direct percussion.
And then and then direct percussion, and then all these crazy elaborate gizmos, and my thought is that it's probably indirect percussion. And when you see the concavity, let me show you just a miserable failure on a Clovis. Let's see what the concavity on this is. Isn't that crazy material? I was trying to make
That
a
looks like the same stuff you would like.
yeah, it is. I was trying to make a polka dotted fluted point. You know, I
that's
figured it'd be
dope.
pretty far out. But of course, I broke it. But you can see if I'm gonna flute something with that kind of concavity, you know, to the preform,
Kind of hard to do that direct percussion.
Right.
yeah, you're gonna break off these little tangs. There's no way to get in there. No, that's and so what you see on a lot of the Folsom stuff, and of course I am in the presence of Dr. Folsom, Midland.
Yeah.
Kind of like Jekyll and Hyde.
Something
Well, I
like-
study the relationship between the two. So.
So they'll actually have, there'll be a
Jekyll
little,
and Hyde.
Yeah.
a little, there'll be a third little projection right in the middle here, where it's basically a hyper isolated platform where they can put something in there, and well, through whatever means.
Yeah.
And so is it like some kind of chest punch? Is it a punch that, you know, you can place it and then pop it, you know, but they're not hitting it directly. No way.
Kind of the other fun thing about Folsom preforms is that
No.
the preform on Folsom points is never a point. It's always like rounded or squared off, presumably because it was braced against something when they fluted it. So there's some sort of, not necessarily bipolar, but there's some sort of like mechanism holding it in place when they did that. Whether they're just.
Well, and
I
he
tried.
was saying like wrapped in clay or something like that.
Probably not clay. What I tried when I tried one of my few attempts at fluting a Folsom point, I braced it against that wooden bench around the corner.
Oh, okay.
Broke it in half, so that might not be very analogous. But
Right.
it was a very kind of
Yeah,
classic break.
and we saw those on the specimens on a Folsom site that I worked on in North Dakota, and they would dull the distal ends. They would, and so like, why?
Yeah.
Why are they dulling this?
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
So this broke when you tried to flute it?
I on that one I don't know. Yeah, I think so. I don't know what happened. It was like crappy platform prep.
Like the
I don't
platform
know. I was.
came off
it
and
looked like
constructed anyways.
I think maybe I had a platform isolated and it probably sheared off here.
Right.
Yeah, and
That's what it looks like.
yeah, and it just oh that stuff's kind of temperamental. You know, I'm not gonna beat
Probably did
myself
better
up
on
too
that
much.
material than I would have.
Okay, so so to the indirect. So here, let me see if I can take a couple of flakes off using indirect percussion, and so the tools that I'm using by and large are ones that, you know, I'm actually seeing in the archaeological record, you know, so far. Though I will say, and I know they're there though, those pecus potatoes,
yeah.
they got to be somewhere out there,
Yeah.
man.
Oh, yeah.
They got to be using these suckers, but I hadn't seen any yet. But I you know, there could be some in there. You know, in that Skiles, isn't the Skiles collection over there now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but people never collect that kind of crap. You know, I mean, it's like a
Look at the
hammerstone.
Heinz Cave collection.
The polka dot would have been cool.
So now what I'm doing is
Huh?
Is
I'm
that Justin's thesis stuff?
preparing a platform, and so it's,
I
No,
don't.
he was Kelly Cave.
Yeah, no, I don't think. No, I don't think. This was the Skiles' private collection.
Oh, okay. Oh, really?
okay. So I got, so now I'm creating a platform to place my punch, and so what I'm doing, I'm just gonna get some pieces of leather. Now I'm on kind of a weird slope here, and so I'm just gonna use a couple of pieces of leather, and we're on,
Yeah.
you know, the ground.
You would appreciate the story. When I was napping around the corner one day, of course I was using my trusty wooden chair, which you also hate, but I totally fell over sideways into a pile of Deviton.
Did you get cut?
No, I was actually okay because it was all, you know, flat lying flakes and stuff, so it was all right. But yeah, it was kind of scary. It was like, dang it, this is why Chris says don't use chairs.
So right here, I'm trying to think of, I'm trying to target an area mass that I want to remove. You know, now I'm getting into how to get the platform just right. So this gets into this whole thing with platform preparations to target mass on your biface, and it's just, you know, it gets kind of, it does get a little tedious. So here's a piece of native hardwood, and
But
then let's see here. I think I'm gonna
The
try.
work and the effort comes into preparing the platform.
Yeah, it's just.
hitting it is just kind of mechanical, but
All right, here we go.
it takes some skill to get the platforms.
That's where the real,
There we go.
Yeah.
the real experience comes in. When you're hitting it, it's muscle memory, but
All right.
the know-how is.
Yeah.
So that came off.
Yeah. So let's see. There's that guy there,
Now,
and
even these little flakes, each one of those can be used. So you're not
Let's see
wasting those.
here.
You can always use them to cut something or shred something.
so now I want to target this little area mass right next to it, and so I'm going to shape my platform accordingly, and just kind of.
And is there a
Now,
ridge
do
there that you're-
scrapers need to be that sharp?
Yeah,
or
I'm going to
would you
use
dull
that.
a
I'm going to
scraper
use
with
that
a
Eris,
can of hydro?
and there's
Sorry?
mass right there.
Yeah.
So, you know, you never target a convexity because there's no mass to remove. You always target the concavity. You target the convexities. And so, you know who really taught me a lot about that was old Frederick Soleil.
Yeah.
Flint knapping. He was a good Flint
Yeah, I've
napper.
got a book of his right now. I'm reading. It's good stuff.
All right, so let's see here. So here now I want to kind of eyeball how I want to orient my punch, so I'm going the right direction. Here and
The key is not to remove your big toe.
you know, honestly, I almost never hit my feet. I'll always, if I hit anything, I'll hit my knuckle. And so, but the nice thing about this technique is that, and it looks kind of tedious, but you can really end up.
That's how you get the flaking patterns, though, with that
Let's
sort
see.
of precision.
Let's see here. I know I brought some out. Now here's one. You can really get your bifaces thin using this technique. And how are you guys today?
Good.
So, well, here, as long as I'm passing out the show and tell. So here's one that I did. I'm making the thin bifacial knives, and I'm trying to I'm mimicking my tools off of ones that we've seen in the archaeological record, and so I'm doing my best to try to figure out, you know, how they were being used, and I think I'm close.